The Gilded Age. Season 3, Episode 2, that moment finally arrives. Just when you think things can't get more chaotic in New York's high society, this episode proves that the drama is just getting started. From secret affairs to family implosions, from betrayal to liberation, this episode hits harder than any before. So many lines are crossed, and now everyone has to deal with the consequences. Whether it's Bertha Russell tightening her grip on her daughter, or Marion risking everything for love, the second episode doesn't hold back. It's bold, emotional, and full of tension. And the best part? This is only the beginning of the storm. Glady's sudden disappearance shook the Russell household to its core, and now in episode 2, the aftermath unfolds in the most dramatic way possible. George, already furious but trying to maintain his composure, personally brings Glady's back home, thinking this will resolve the issue quietly. But what happens instead is an emotional eruption. Glady's is no longer the obedient girl Bertha thought she had control over. She returns not as a lost child, but as a woman who has tasted freedom, and she's not willing to go back. Her love for Billy Clark still burns strong, and her resentment toward her mother is crystal clear. Bertha, however, remains relentless. She believes that Glady's little rebellion was just a passing tantrum, and she doubles down on her plan to marry her off to the Duke as soon as possible. That's when George, who up until now backed Bertha out of loyalty and belief in her vision, begins to falter. He sees the fear in his daughter's eyes, the sadness, the desperation, and for the first time, he questions everything. Could Bertha's ambitions actually be hurting their children? That seed of doubt grows quickly, especially after a deeply emotional conversation with Glady's where she breaks down, telling him she'd rather live in obscurity with a man she loves than rot in a golden cage as a duchess. George is shaken. He doesn't fully abandon Bertha, at least not yet, but the tension between them is no longer hidden. It's there in every look, every word, and Bertha notices. She may not show it on the surface, but the power dynamics in the Russell home are shifting. Meanwhile, Glady's name is on every tongue in high society. Her runaway act wasn't just a personal rebellion, it's a public scandal. And that scandal threatens everything Bertha has built. She's worked too hard, climbed too high, and risked too much to let her daughter destroy it all. That's why, in a shocking move, she arranges a private dinner with the Duke and his family without telling Glady's. Her plan? Lock in the engagement by forcing Glady's hand, making the union seem like a done deal in the public eye. But Glady's doesn't stay silent. When she finds out, she shows up at the dinner, stands in front of everyone, and declares that she will not marry the Duke. The room freezes. Bertha's face turns to stone, and suddenly, the war between mother and daughter is no longer private, it's official, and it's brutal. This episode doesn't just explore a family falling apart. It dives deep into the cost of control, the pain of unmet expectations, and the courage it takes to stand up even when you're alone. Glady's is finally stepping into her own light, and nothing will ever be the same again. But as much as her actions feel victorious, we know this is only the beginning. Because Bertha Russell is not the kind of woman who loses without a fight. While Glady's rebellion is shaking the Russell household, over at the Rhijn estate, a different kind of storm is brewing, one that's quieter on the surface, but equally explosive beneath. Ada, who has recently taken on her role as the new lady of the house, is growing stronger and more vocal by the day. Her involvement in the temperance movement has transformed her, giving her a new sense of purpose. But with that purpose comes power, and not everyone in the household is ready to accept that. Agnes, who has always ruled her home with iron will and sharp words, finds herself slipping into irrelevance, and it's eating away at her. For years, she was the center of the family's authority, her opinion respected and her silence feared. Now she watches her younger sister host gatherings, influence decisions, and earn the admiration of guests who once bowed only to her. And Agnes doesn't like being replaced. In episode 2, their polite disagreements grow into sharp debates, and those debates quickly become personal attacks. What starts as a simple disagreement about the guest list for a temperance tea ends in a brutal confrontation where Ada accuses Agnes of being outdated, judgmental, and unwilling to accept change. Agnes, stunned by her sister's boldness, retaliates with venom, reminding Ada of every past mistake and loss. The words cut deep, especially since they're coming from someone who knows all of Ada's wounds. The fight escalates to the point where Ada does the unthinkable. She asks Agnes to leave the house if she cannot respect the new order. Agnes, humiliated and furious, packs her things. The idea of her living in her son's small home, on a modest income, is laughable to everyone around her, but she does it anyway. And that image alone, Agnes Van Rhijn walking away from her grand estate to live a simpler life, is something no one ever expected to see. But here we are, and this sudden shift in power echoes far beyond the walls of the Van Rhijn home. People are talking. Whispers ripple through society. Is Agnes finally done? Has Ada truly taken her place? But while Ada may have won the battle, she's beginning to realize the cost. The moral weight of temperance, the pressure of hosting, and the pain of fighting with her own blood begin to wear her down. And she's not the only one feeling pressure. Over in the Brooke household, Peggy's illness is reaching a terrifying new stage. Her cough is worse, her strength fading. Episode 2 takes us deeper into her struggle, revealing how little support she actually has. Her mother is worried sick but powerless, and the family doctor still refuses to treat her. When she's finally seen by a black physician, he confirms their worst fears. Peggy must be hospitalized or risk losing her life. But here's the tragedy: most hospitals won't accept her. The episode paints a brutal picture of systemic racism, showing how even the wealthy and educated aren't immune to discrimination when the color of their skin becomes the deciding factor. The fight for Peggy's health becomes a fight against the entire system. The Van Rhijn family tries to step in, some out of guilt, some out of genuine concern, but even they are bound by the limitations of their era. And through it all, Peggy remains strong, even as her body weakens. Her storyline, though painful, becomes one of the most powerful in the series so far. Because it's not just about survival, it's about dignity, resistance, and injustice. In the end, this episode doesn't offer neat resolutions. It offers tension. Relationships unravel, loyalties shift, and secrets begin to leak through the cracks. And as New York's high society starts to fracture under the weight of pride, illness, and ambition, one thing is clear: no one is safe from the fallout. As the episode reaches its final stretch, the emotional stakes soar even higher, especially with the unraveling of Marion and Larry's fragile romance. What once felt like a hopeful glimmer of love in a rigid world is now slowly cracking under the immense pressure of societal expectations. Larry, ever the romantic and fiercely devoted to Marion, is ready to take the next step. He has a ring, he's thought it through, and he sees a future with her. But Marion, bruised by past heartbreaks and worn down by constant judgment, is not so sure. She feels the invisible walls closing in again. The whispers, the expectations, the fear that she'll once again become the subject of gossip. And now, with Bertha Russell watching her every move like a hawk, that fear becomes reality. Word of Marion and Larry's courtship finally reaches Bertha, and as predicted, she explodes. She doesn't confront them directly, at least not at first. Instead, she orchestrates a quiet but deadly campaign to dismantle their bond. She speaks to Larry in private, disguising her control as motherly concern. She reminds him of their name, their ambitions, and the realities of marrying someone like Marion, someone with no wealth, no title, and 2 failed engagements trailing behind her. It's cruel, calculated, and deeply effective. Larry begins to second guess. Not his love, but the consequences of pursuing it. And when he starts pulling away, Marion feels it instantly. She doesn't need words to see what's happening. She's been through this cycle before. But this time, it hurts more. Because this time, she truly believed she had found something real. What's even more painful is that Bertha doesn't stop there. She finds a moment alone with Marion, and in the coldest tone imaginable, warns her to walk away, for Larry's sake. It's not a suggestion, it's a command, delivered with quiet rage. And Marion, as proud as she is, feels crushed. She knows she's not wanted in their world. She knows Bertha will stop at nothing to protect her social ladder, so now she's left with a brutal decision. Stay and fight for love, or walk away with her dignity intact, but her heart in pieces. Elsewhere, in one of the most shocking turns of the episode, Aurora's storyline takes a sharp and heartbreaking dive. Her husband's desire for a divorce, introduced in the previous episode, becomes a full-blown scandal when he announces it publicly at a dinner party. A moment so humiliating that even the most composed socialites are left speechless. The news spreads like wildfire, and Aurora is immediately isolated. Friends avoid her, invitations dry up, and her name becomes a cautionary tale. Divorce, after all, is still seen as a moral failure, especially for women. But what makes this worse is that the rumors about her husband's secret life begin to surface, and it becomes painfully clear that Aurora isn't at fault. He was never truly hers to begin with. Yet she's the one being punished. Stripped of her status, her stability, and her sense of identity, Aurora faces the cruel reality that no one will stand by her except Marion. And Marion, despite her own heartbreak, does just that. In a moving scene, the two women sit together, not as outcasts, but as survivors, each refusing to be destroyed by the men and mothers who tried to shape their futures. Marion offers Aurora a lifeline, an introduction to an elite philanthropic circle where Aurora can use her reputation for good to start a new life of purpose. It's not a perfect solution, but it's a start. And right now, that's everything. Episode 2 ends not with a climax, but with a quiet unraveling. Characters who once seemed unshakable are now trembling. Bertha, despite her victories, senses that she's created more enemies than allies. George's loyalty is cracking. Larry's confidence is shaken. Agnes, once feared, now sits in a modest home far from her marble halls. Peggy fights for every breath, and Marion and Aurora, though scarred, are still standing. The Gilded Age is no longer just about wealth and social climbing, it's about survival. And the deeper these characters fall, the more we realize this season is not just rewriting their futures, it's rewriting the rules of the world they live in. With everything crumbling behind gilded walls, the quiet chaos creeping through every storyline begins to intertwine, showing us that no one in New York's upper crust can escape the shifting tides. In this final section of episode 2, the weight of appearances becomes unbearable, and masks start slipping off. Bertha, who still believes she can force reality to bend to her will, begins to see the cost of her obsession with power. Her influence may still intimidate those around her, but she's beginning to realize that respect cannot be forced, and neither can love. George, worn thin by the emotional damage Glady suffered and disturbed by Bertha's refusal to show empathy, finally confronts her in private. It's not a loud fight, it's worse than that. It's cold, quiet, and full of truth. George tells her that if she continues to crush their daughter's spirit in the name of legacy, he won't stand by her side any longer. And for the first time, Bertha doesn't respond with fire. She pauses. She sees the look in George's eyes, the same look he gave her when he built her dreams into reality. That look is gone now, replaced with something colder, doubt and fear. Meanwhile, back in the Van Rhijn home, the absence of Agnes doesn't bring the peace Ada expected. Instead, the house feels unsteady, like a ship missing its anchor. Ada, though strong in her beliefs, begins to miss her sister. The tension was unbearable, yes, but the silence feels even worse. She starts to question if righteousness is worth loneliness. There's a moment in this episode, brief but powerful, where Ada walks past Agnes's empty chair during one of her meetings and pauses. No one else notices, but in that moment, you feel it. The cost of winning. Still, Ada knows there's no going back. She's leading now, and there's no place for second thoughts when eyes are watching. On the streets, Peggy's story grows even more haunting. After being rejected by yet another hospital, she collapses while trying to return home. Her mother and a neighbor rush her to a black-run clinic far outside the city. It's understaffed and overwhelmed, but it's her only chance. The doctors there work tirelessly, and the episode doesn't flinch from showing how hard Black professionals fought to save their communities in the face of systemic cruelty. As Peggy drifts in and out of fever dreams, we get flashbacks to her childhood.